Chapter 61 Adopting a Kitten. Maya, you are listening at novelfull.audio. On that same day, cities all around the country introduced two new mangas. Naruto and Hataraku Sama mangas. Originally, only the first one would be sent to these bookstores. But Sayuri managed to secure a joint order after she talked with these bookstores. Sayuri also managed to sell copies of the SAO light novel that Theo sent to her, to these chain bookstores around the country. She and her team were once more shocked by another great story from Theo. They edited and they were ready to release the novel next. The Fuji company was becoming bigger and bigger, and the vultures that would arrive didn't know about the giant they were messing with. While troubled times were coming to the Fuji company, Theo was at his office studying. He decided that he would study to increase his skills and proficiencies during the whole day, every day for the next week. Except for when he had to work at the restaurant. He was certain that he could increase his knowledge until a level where he could project his house, at the end of the week. He just finished having lunch with Sam, when he received a phone call from the veterinarian clinic. Mr. Gray. We are from the Pet Plus clinic. We are calling about a kitten you left with us, a woman's voice said over the phone. Yes, I left it there Saturday. Is everything okay? Theo replied. We made some tests, we verified that the kitten is malnourished, anemic, and with an exposed wound from a bite. But it is not a life-threatening situation. We treated it and the kitten is ready to be taken. You can come over any time, the lady said. Theo was ecstatic as he heard the diagnosis. He always loved cats and now he would have one. It would be fun to surprise Aurora with it. Theo thought as he got up and walked out of the building. He wanted to take the little kitten home already. He drove his car towards the veterinary clinic, and after driving for 20 minutes, he arrived. Theo asked about the kitten as he entered the clinic. 5 minutes later, he was called inside a room. Mr. Gray. I am one of the pet medics of this clinic and I was the one that treated the kitten, the man said. Nice to meet you. Theo greeted the veterinarian. The kitten is a female, probably 3 weeks old. We noticed that she has a large laceration over her back. It was probably caused by predators trying to eat her. We managed to disinfect the wound and stitch it. She is going to need to take some medications, vaccines to avoid diseases, and to change the bandage of the wound every 3 days, the veterinarian explained. Theo sighed in relief after hearing that the kitten would not die. Okay, I would like to do that. Theo said. Like that, Theo spent another hour waiting while the kitten was being vaccinated. He also paid the bill for the treatment. And it was pricey. But Theo didn't even hesitate on paying. When they called Theo again, he immediately stood up. Sir, the kitten is here. You can retrieve her, a lady said to Theo. Theo looked at the kitten and it seemed that she was another cat. She still looked wary toward others but her big yellow eyes looked around with curiosity. She had black and white fur that made her look extra cute. Theo noticed that he did not have any compartment to take her. Or even the most basic necessities to take care of a cat. The lady noticing his difficulties said to him. Sir, we have a pet shop attached to the clinic. You can find all sorts of food, toys, and more stuff to take care of cats there, the lady said. Thank you. Theo thanked her profusely as he looked at her with thankful eyes. The lady, who already thought that Theo was super handsome, became even more infatuated. Theo picked up the kitten and towards the pet shop. There, Theo bought so much stuff that he had to ask for help to take the stuff to his car. He bought a bunch of leashes and collars for the kitten to wear. Litter boxes, furniture, towers, scratchers, heated beds. Wet food and milk. She was still a baby, so she couldn't eat hard food. He also bought some toys for her to play with. Theo was already thinking about adding some things to his house project. He wanted the house to be cat-friendly. Theo arrived home and gave the kitten some milk and played with her for a while. He took a bunch of pictures of her. Such a cutie. Theo almost died of so much cuteness. Soon it was time to go to the restaurant to cook. After playing with Theo and eating, the kitten was sleepy. The vet said she would sleep more than usual after the vaccines. I hope she sleeps until Aurora and I come back from the restaurant, Theo thought as he looked at her sleeping when he was leaving. The service that night went much better than the day before. The 3 new cooks didn't make any major mistakes. Consequently, the 6 old cooks had a much better time cooking with a less demanding workload. After the service ended, Theo told June to not accept any reservations on Monday nights anymore. Monday is going to be our rest days. Theo said. Thank goddess, boss, it was starting to become too demanding, working every day of the week. June said with a sigh of relief. Yeah, for me too. Theo laughed. Come on, let's go, Cupcake. Theo said to Aurora as he bade farewell to June. Theo was driving his car with Aurora beside him when he said. Hey, I have a surprise for you at our apartment. Theo had playful eyes when he said that. Surprise. What is it? Aurora exclaimed. No telling. Theo smiled. Please. Big brother. Aurora pleaded with a sweet voice and teary eyes. Theo looked at her for a moment, but he turned his head instantly. Her puppy face is becoming more powerful. Theo thought as he fought the urge to give in to her puppy face. Aurora, seeing that her puppy face didn't work, snorted and turned her head in annoyance. We are almost arriving, you going to see soon. Theo said as he heard her snort. When they arrived, Aurora ran towards the apartment as soon Theo shut down the car. Theo shook his head while smiling. He followed her soon after. While he was entering the apartment, he heard Aurora's scream. So cute. Theo was greeted by the image of Aurora holding a kitten in her arms as he entered his apartment. The 2 of them are a killing combination of cuteness, Theo thought as he looked at the scene. Who's this cat, brother? Aurora asked. I rescued when I was walking by some woods. I adopted her and now she is part of our family. Theo smiled. Aw, such a cutie. You gonna be our little princess, okay? Aurora said as she patted the sleepy cat's head. Does she have a name? Aurora asked. No, I wanted to ask your opinion. Theo replied. They thought for a while when suddenly Aurora exclaimed. How about Maya? Aurora asked. Theo liked the way it sounded. I like it. Theo replied with a smile. It is decided. Maya is part of our family now. Theo patted Aurora and Maya's heads. Both purred with satisfaction. Theo almost died of so much cuteness when he heard them. Cupcake, I was thinking about moving to something bigger. What would you like to have on our new house? Aurora was surprised, but she trusted Theo. So, she accepted the change without much hassle. How about a gym and some? Aurora started saying what would she like in her dream house. 62 Chapter 62 You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, at the international airport of Elfire City. 3 men could be seen exiting the domestic gate. They were Peter Green, George Takeda, and John Smith. Peter was editor-manager of the Fury Jump Company. This company was going through tough times and they came to Elfire City looking for the salvation of their company. George, John. I want you both doing an intense search about the Fuji jump. I want to know everything. Peter ordered his employees. Yes, boss, they replied. George was part of the editor team and John was just an intern, they didn't like their boss. But they had to obey him, nonetheless. They exited the airport and headed towards a hotel. But there wasn't just the Fury Jump that arrived at Elfire City wanting to steal the mangaka of Naruto, or even buying the Fuji company. 3 more publishing houses, from Sakura City, arrived in Elfire City that day. All of them wanted the easy win that was to entice a mangaka from a small publishing house. For the next 2 days, the 4 companies searched for all available information about the Fuji Jump. They searched for the company's past and found many things. For example, they found that the Fuji Jump was founded by Hirono Shigekazu 20 years ago. For the first years, the company only operated at Elffire City, but after some years the company started operating in the whole Bluecorn state, becoming somewhat famous in the region. But some years ago, the founder died of old age. He left the company for his adopted daughter, Hirono Sayuri. She could not handle the pressure of the other publishing houses of Bluecorn State. And the company suffered several losses of money and authors, resulting in the almost closure of the company. It was at this point of their search that they started having less information. They discovered that the Fuji Jump received an offer of $150,000, but they didn't even reply to the offer. When everything indicated that Hirono Sayuri would declare bankruptcy, a mysterious person bought the company. They did not even discover the amount of money and how many shares were involved in the transaction. From this point forward, they could only discover information that was already disclosed to the public. They even tried contacting some employees of the company, but all of them denied saying anything. All the Fuji's employees were hardcore loyal to Sayuri and Theo, they wouldn't betray the company. They only discovered that after the new owner arrived, the company became something completely different. It seemed that the owner had a great management talent, and with the addition of a good manga to publish, the company was becoming bigger than ever. After discovering all of that, the 4 publishing houses gave up buying the Fuji Jump. They did not think a talented and good owner would sell her company. Now they could only go for the author of the Naruto manga. They were still confident about enticing the mangaka. But after focusing on searching for the mangaka, they did not find anything again. They were starting to lose their calmness. They started offering money and bribes to some employees. Only 2 people accepted the bribe, but even then, they could not find anything. They only found a lead that the author was on the Fuji's building, and if they went there, they might find the mangaka. Thursday, October 15th. 4 groups of men could be seen at the front of the Fuji Jump's building. George, Josh. You 2 must pay attention when we enter. If you guys see someone that might be the mangaka, go to the person and ask for her/his contact information. Peter Green said. Yes, boss, they said. Instructions like that could be seen in the other group of people. They were avid to find the mangaka. Peter and the other 2 entered the building and went towards the greeter counter. Hi, I have a meeting with a manager. My name is Peter Green, he said. When the greeter heard that, he looked at them with a strange look, but afterward he smiled and said as if nothing happened. Yes, sir, you can go to the 2nd floor. They will guide you towards the conference room, the greeter smiled. Peter, George, and Josh thought the greeter was weird, but they did not think much of it and went ahead. As they entered the conference room, they saw 3 groups of people that seemed seated far from each other. Are you the manager? One of the men asked Peter. No, are you the manager? Peter asked the man with a confused look. No, all the people in the room were trying to figure out what was going on when 2 people entered the room. One of them was a girl, a woman, that seemed like she was 13 years old. And other was a man with silver-ash hair and silver eyes. The girl stopped at the head of the table and said with a confident tone. Good afternoon, gentlemen, my name is Hirono Sayuri. I am the head director of the Fuji Jump Company. By sheer coincidence, all of you scheduled appointments with me today. As I am a busy person, I figured we all have the meeting at the same time. Sayuri said with a gentle smile. When they all heard that, they started figuring out who were the other groups and what was happening. Now, why don't you introduce yourselves? Sayuri continued. Having no other option, they started introducing themselves and who they were representing. Good afternoon, Miss Hirono, I am Peter Green and I come from the Fury Jump Company. And these are my 2 employees George and Josh. Peter said lastly after all the other groups introduced themselves. Well, it is nice to meet guests all day from the capital. Sayuri said with a gentle smile. A gentle smile that exuded danger. They could feel that this woman was not easy to fool. So, how about you all state what business you all have with our humble company, she asked. Miss Haruno, we would like to offer to buy the company. We brought the proposal for you to look at, a man said as he passes a document to her. After the man said that all other groups said the same thing. Even if they were certain that they could not buy the company, they had to find an excuse to meet a director of the company. And all of them thought that a buying proposal was a good idea. They hoped that after they received a denial, they could force the company to divulge the information about the mangaka. Sayuri did not even look at the proposals. My apologies, we have no intention of selling the company. Sayuri smiled again, but this time the smile was even more dangerous. All of them were surprised that she would refuse so bluntly. But they didn't care anyway, it was time to discover the author's identity. Miss Haruno, we understand that you want to remain ahead of the company. I read your last release and it is magnificent work, I would love to meet the genius who wrote that. And some advice, it is more prudent to observe the market and see that there are companies with more influence. Peter said with a venomous tongue, he did not even disguise the threat towards the Fuji company. He was basically saying that if she did not tell who the mangaka was, they would try to sink the Fuji company. All the other groups said the same thing, but Sayuri did not say anything. She only waited for them to finish talking, threatening, with a little smile on her face. When the last person stopped talking, she said something that made all of them freeze in horror. Oh, so you all are finally showing your true faces. I suppose you guys truly trusted the bribed employees of our company, Sayuri with a smile that was not gentle anymore, it was a freakishly dangerous smile of a sneer. Chapter 63 Sayuri is a badass. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Inside the conference room of the Fuji Jump Company's building, the group of people from Sakura City were confused and did not know what was happening. A situation like this never happened before with them. We treat others with the same respect we are treated with. Now, you come to our city and try to bribe our employees to get confidential corporate information. Sayuri said with a disgusted tone. Yes, it was all Sayuri's scheme from the beginning. As soon as the Fuji Jump was launched all around the country, Theo and Sayuri were expecting that they would attract the attention of companies from Sakura City. So, at the beginning of the week, Sayuri had a meeting with all the employees to discuss and warn them that they might be contacted by a few people that were after the company's secrets. When the first employees were contacted, they immediately told Sayuri about it. After Theo bought the company, Sayuri fired all the employees that were not loyal to the company. And now, all the employees were extremely loyal to the company. They had a great boss and a great working place. There was no reason to betray it. And even if there was a betrayer in the company, it would not be possible to discover the company's secrets. Sayuri held tight control of the company, and only a few people were aware of the information. Theo's identity as the author of their successful works was even more secure. The only people who knew that he was the author were Sayuri and the chief editor of the company, and he was Sayuri's cousin. Miss Haruno, it is not like. We only wanted to meet Naruto's author, one of them said as he sweat profusely. All of them corroborated as cold sweat dripped down their faces. And you think only because of that, your actions are justified? Sayuri sneered. They could not answer her question, because indeed it was no justifiable excuse for their actions. Seeing that you're so shameless and too bent after our author. I bought him here. If you guys can convince him to leave us, we will not make a fuss about it. Sayuri smiled playfully. She wasn't even a little afraid of them enticing Theo. He had the ownership of the majority of shares anyway of the whole company. He was not just a small mangaka drawing a manga to earn money to pay for his monthly expenses. He was the owner, and all the royalties were his. For example, in the Sakura Abode country, most mangakas don't earn an hourly wage. Instead, they have contract-based employment with partial sales, royalties, agreements. This means that a mangaka makes XX number of pages per month for a set price. For a starting mangaka, this is around $500 for 20.40 pages. On top of this, they still earn their royalties, which is around 5.15% per tankobon. These tankobons sell around $10 each, which would make $0.50 a tankobon. Given that it takes around 5 hours for a page, we can say that an average starting mangaka earns about $10 an hour. Tankobons. Compilations or brochures of chapters that may form part of a series. Is it possible to make money from manga creation? How much money do mangakas make? A mangaka in Sakura Abode country can make over roughly $19,000 per year, or over $470 per volume. Eiichiro Oda, the top-earning mangaka in Sakura Abode country, is rumored to have even made around $29 million last few years. But everything was tied with the potential of the manga. If the manga did not become successful, the mangakas could not survive by only creating mangas. This brings to the pretty well-known fact that mangakas tend to have a second job. As for a starting mangaka, it is not sufficient to pay the bills. The 4 publishing houses from Sakura City thought that Theo was a low-paid mangaka that was only starting in the manga industry. With this mentality, they thought their proposition would entice the mangaka for sure. They looked at the man that was seated beside Sayuri. He looked at the situation with an amused smile. He didn't say anything the whole time, and with Sayuri at the command of the meeting, they did not even notice him before. I am Peter Green from Fury Jump. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Peter said at first. He wanted to give a good impression to Theo. You can call me Theodore. Theo said with a smile. Mr. Theodore, it is also my pleasure to meet you, a man with yellow hair said. The other 2 men in charge of their publishing houses also greeted Theo with polite smiles. Suddenly, the yellow-haired man stood up and passed a document to Theo. Mr. Theodore, as the editor-manager of my company, I came here intending to poach your talents into our company. We are prepared to present you a great offer. As you can see the offer on your hand. We are offering $1,500 for every 40 pages in the month. Also, we offer 7.5% of royalties for every tankobon sold. We will need you to move to Sac City, but we will take care of everything for your move over, the yellow-haired man said with a smile. This offer was indeed capable of enticing mangakas from small publishing houses. Small publishing usually only could offer $500 for every 20 pages, and 5% of royalties for every tankobon sold. If any normal starting heard this offer, she would be ecstatic. But Theo's reaction was the same amused smile. Even after he heard the next 2 offers, that were similar to the yellow-haired man, Theo did not show any reaction. The 3 men, that just presented their offer, were confused with the lack of reaction of Theo. Peter smiled triumphantly as he saw that. Mr. Theodore, I am representing the Fury Jump and we would ecstatic to have your talent in our company. We are offering $3,000 for every 40 pages you make in the month. Also, we offer 10% of royalties for every tankobon sold. In addition to that, we are prepared to negotiate royalties for merchandises of characters and if eventually the manga is adapted to an anime version. Peter smiled. The yellow-haired man and the other 2 men in charge of the 3 publishing houses had ugly faces when they heard Peter's offer. Fury Jumps was much better than their offer. He was offering almost the double money. And even the royalties of the characters' merchandise. Making a comparison with their offer, hypothetically if Theo worked 10 hours per day and draw 2 pages in these 10 hours. He would draw 60 pages a month, he would receive $4,500 with the Fury Jump, but with them, Theo would only receive $2,250. And that was even without adding the royalties in the mix. Fury Jump's offer was 2.5% higher than theirs. This amount of percentage may appear low, but when talking about thousands of copies sold every month, Theo would receive much more with the Fury Jumps offer. That was why Peter was smiling so triumphantly. He knew his offer was irresistible for a starting mangaka. But when he saw Theo's face, Peter saw eyes full of mockery as if Theo was looking at clowns dancing in front of him. Peter's smile froze and became bewildered. Theo coughed and attracted all their attention. I am thankful that all of you like my work. It is a pleasure to have my work being so well received for such big companies as yourselves. Theo said with a polite smile. All of them heard polite words and saw a polite smile, but they could not help having the feeling that they were being mocked. I analyzed your offers, but unfortunately none of them attracted my attention. Thank you again for coming here, but my answer is no. Theo gave a reply that none of them dared to dream. He refused. How was that possible? Peter was even more disturbed. Theo's manga was the salvation of his company and that was why he offered such good conditions. He was certain that the manga was already his. What they could not understand was that Theo did not even look at their meager offer. Some $1,000 for every page. Less than 10% of royalties. That was laughable for Theo. He owned all the royalties. The whole company was his. After a moment of confusion, the four chiefs of the publishing houses became angry. How dare you, boy, the yellow-haired man shouted. You are just a little author, and you don't even put us in your eyes, another man said angrily. I suggest you accept our offer, or you will regret it. Peter said with a cold voice. Theo didn't react to their outburst, only giving them an amused smile. It was Sayuri that replied to them. Oh, you are threatening our mangaka. I knew you guys had no shame, but this is much worse. Sayuri said with a disgusted tone. But I already expected such shamelessness. Let me show you some things. Sayuri smiled at them as she passed a document. This document is the proof that your company's committed industrial espionage by bribing our employees. We have all the calls you made recorded. And this meeting is also being recorded. So, I suggest you go back to the capital, or my company will sue all your companies. Sayuri smiled gently again. Chapter 64 Ryoko arrives. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The group of men from Sakura City's publishing houses froze on their seats after hearing Sayuri's threat. They could not believe that the entire time, they were walking according to Sayuri's plan. Yes, since the beginning of the episode, this was Sayuri's plan. Theo only came to know what was happening last night. After hearing her genius plan, Theo was even more impressed by Sayuri's efficiency and resourcefulness. He was even more pleased that such a good person oversaw his company. Miss Haruno, don't you think that is taking things too far? Peter asked with a nervous tone. I think the opposite. You all took things too far. Didn't you just threaten my employee? Sayuri said with a cold voice. Peter shut his mouth. His company was already living through scandals. They could not afford another one. Miss Haruno, we are so sorry. We will take our leave, and do not come to your company ever again if you drop taking charges against my company, the yellow-haired man said while sweating profusely. Yes, me too, Miss Haruno. The other two men also promised to leave the Fuji jump alone in exchange for the dropping of charges. Peter saw his competitors admitting defeat. He didn't have any other option other than admitting defeat too. While all of them were leaving the conference room, Peter glared intensely at Theo. This is not over. I have to go back to Sakura City with the results optimal. If the legal way did not work, I can only use dirty ways. Peter thought evilly. Sayuri, you were so awesome. I didn't know you could be so badass. Theo exclaimed with a laugh after the group of men left the room. Thank you, Sayuri said giggling. So, is everything okay now? Theo asked. I think so. The only publishing houses that came in contact with us these days, were the four of them. And I don't think any other will come after us in a short while of time. Sayuri said. Great, now we can expand our company through the country without impediments. Theo smiled. Before Sayuri could reply to him, they heard a knock on the door of the conference room. Boss, there is a woman downstairs saying she's from Sakura City. She is after a job here in our company. Sayuri's secretary said after entering the room. Sakura City. Sayuri looked at Theo, and they both nodded at each other. Tell her to come here. Sayuri said. What do you think this is? Sayuri asked Theo after her secretary left. I don't think she is with them. Operating alone is a risky move while probing another company. She must be after a job here. Theo replied with a pensive look. While they were talking, Ryoko Riverdale was seating in the waiting room of the Fuji Jumps building. She was super nervous. This meeting was going to decide if she could continue working with what she loved. After deciding to leave Sakura City on Monday, Ryoko started selling everything that she had so that she could start a new life in another city. Ryoko was raised by only her mother, she never met her father, Ryoko's mother never mentioned him. Ryoko was happy that at least she had a mother. But unfortunately, when Ryoko was 20 years old, her mother got diagnosed with terminal cancer. 6 months later Ryoko's mother died. Ryoko was heartbroken, but she fought and moved on with her life to finish her college studies. She knew that was what her mother would want. After she got her university degree on her graduation day, instead of going to a party, she went to the cemetery to show her mother that she did it. She learned to live with the pain of living without her mother, but she would believe that her dreams would be shattered by a fat bastard. After seeing a little hope of working in her dream job, she did not hesitate in jumping the bridge. Even if she did not get the job, she would not regret it. She was tired of Sakura City. This city gave her mixed feelings. It was the city where she lived so many memories with her mother, but she only could remember her mother dying here. It was the city where she graduated from a star university to work in her dream job, but she only could remember how her career was ruined by a bast *****. She wanted to start anew. She sold all her stuff and boarded the plane towards Elfire City with only her clothes and things left by her mother. Ryoko was thinking about all that as she waited in the waiting room. Mississippi. You can go to the second floor, the greeter said suddenly, waking Ryoko of her reverie. Thank you. Ryoko said gratefully. She stood up and walked towards the elevator. She arrived at the second floor and a lady was waiting by the elevator. Miss Riverdale. You can follow me. Sayuri's secretary said. Ryoko nodded and followed the woman. Excuse me. Can I know who is the boss that I am meeting? Ryoko asked. One of them is the director-manager of the Fuji Jump, Haruno Sayuri. And the other? You don't have to know who he is. Just be respectful with him as he is another boss of the company, the secretary replied. She didn't say who Theo was because everyone in the company knew that they should not tell others who Theo was in the company. Ryoko nodded and took a deep breath before she entered the conference room. As she entered the room, she saw 2 people talking while smiling seated by the table. One of them was a woman with childish features, but her eyes gave a wise and mature feeling. The other was a handsome silver-haired man with godly facial features. Ryoko was surprised that the pair were in charge of this company. They were so young. Miss Riverdale, right? Sayuri smiled at Ryoko after she saw the girl entering the room. Theo and Sayuri looked at Ryoko and analyzed the girl. She was a beautiful girl with short blue hair and green eyes. She looked like a model because she was too beautiful. But the thing that did stand out more than her beauty was her eyes. Her eyes passed a multitude of emotions. It passed anxiety about the interview, wariness as if she was deeply hurt in the past, but most of all it passed a hopeful feeling. The hope to work in her dream job. Theo and Sayuri were taken aback that the girl could emanate such deep emotions. Yes, My name is Ryoko Riverdale. This is my resume. Ryoko passed them her resume. Sayuri looked at the resume and raised her eyebrows. This was not what she was expecting. She passed the resume to Theo, and he also lifted his eyebrows in surprise. She was too qualified. She had a degree in anime production from one of the best universities in the country. They could not understand why she would want to work in a company that was not big enough or not related to anime production. Theo's eyes shined as if he saw a hidden gem, but he still maintained a calm face. Miss Ryoko, I am going to be honest with you. You indeed have the qualifications to work here. But we have to know why you left your last job. If you are honest with us, I might give you an opportunity that you dream of. Theo said with a gentle tone. This was the first time Theo spoke after Ryoko entered the room, and she was tranced by it. It was a surprise to Ryoko, after her sexual harassment episode. She developed an aversion towards men in general. But Ryoko's aversion seemed not to notice that Theo was a man too. Ryoko took a deep breath and made a decision. The decision of opening her heart and telling them about all the awful things that happened to her. Author notice. 3 extra chapters guaranteed. Guys, if you want to read more chapters, don't stop giving power stones to my novel. You will be supporting my work and getting more chapters to read. Chapter 65 Ryoko gets a lifetime opportunity. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ryoko opened her heart to Theo and Sayuri. She told how she graduated from the university as the best in her class, and because of it, she was able to secure a job in a big animation studio. But it was then that her nightmare started. Her boss harassed her daily. And after a year of him trying to sleep with her, he made his move, and with it, he ruined her career. Theo and Sayuri listened to her story with serious faces. They did not think that the girl in front of them could lie. What would she earn after lying to a company that is not even bigger than her last job? They sighed after they finished listening to her. Both did not think that the capital had such corrupt people. Theo and Sayuri were also relieved that they were far from all that. I see, I believe your story, and we both are sorry that you had to experience that. But to be honest with you, we do not have any position in the Fuji jump where you can work. Theo said with a gentle voice. Ryoko was emotional when she heard that someone believed her story. After her career was ruined, none of the companies that she applied for a job interview even met her. No one believed her. But she finally met people who believed that she was not guilty. She was emotional at first, but when she heard that they did not a job position for her, she became downcast. She already expected that. Her degree was not in manga production after all. But I did say I would give you an opportunity if you were honest with us. But first, tell me what's your specialization in anime production? Theo asked as he gave her an encouraging smile. Ryoko became hopeful again as she heard that she still had hope of having a job. I have a triple specialization in script writing, storyboard artist and keyframe animator/supervisor. Ryoko said with a shy voice. Theo was even more impressed. These are key steps of the anime production. And she knew 3 of them. It was not by chance that she became the best in her class at the university. While her classmates specialized in one subject. She studied 3, and she was the best student of the 3 of them. Theo's eyes shined with excitement. She would be a key figure in his plans, but first, he needed to assert her talents to see if she was good enough. Miss Ryoko, I am going to say some things that I hope you don't tell anyone else. Theo said with a serious voice. Ryoko was surprised, but she nodded in agreement. Sayuri was curious about what Theo was going to say. It seemed that he was going to explain his plans to them. Well, it was always my objective to produce and write mangas. And that was not different to animes. I always dreamed about producing my own animes. I own multiple companies and now I am capable of opening my own anime production studio. But I don't have someone who already worked in the area. I will give you a volume of light novel that the Fuji Jump will release next week. The name of the novel is Sword Art Online. You have 2 weeks to give me the script and the storyboard art of the anime adaptation of the light novel. If I see that you made a good job, I will give you a job as the supervisor of keyframe of my studio. Ryoko froze. She could not believe that the opportunity that Theo was talking about was a job inside an anime studio. She could work in her dream job again. But if I see that you made an excellent job, a script that was so well written and a storyboard with the perfect timing, I will give you the position of director-manager of my anime studio. But beware, you must do a phenomenal job. Theo smiled playfully as if he was looking forward to what would happen. BA.dump Ryoko's heart was jumping in her chest. This opportunity was once in a lifetime. A director-manager. She would be the boss. Only with Theo as her boss. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Ryoko stood up and bowed with gratitude, as tears rolled out of her eyes. She never imagined that when she thought that her dream was over and her life was like hell, she would find people who believed her and allowed her to live her dream again. Her heart was warm and thankful. Theo and Sayuri were taken aback by her reaction, but they did not interrupt her. They knew that she went through hard times, and she needed to express her gratitude. You are welcome. I am looking forward to what you are going to present me. Theo smiled at her after she stopped her bow. I hope to meet your expectations. Ryoko said with determination. Give me your email, and I will send you the light novel. For the next 2 weeks, you can come here and work on this project. Theo said. They exchanged contact information, and afterward, Ryoko left the room. She felt that everything was a dream. She would never believe if someone told her 1 week ago, that she would have such a huge opportunity for a job in Elffire City. She went towards her hotel room to revise her knowledge. She wanted the director-manager position. So, that's why you were in a rush to release the SAO novel. I didn't know you were so ambitious. Sayuri remarked after Ryoko left. Yes, I am planning to adapt all the works that Fuji Jump releases. And to do that I have to own my own animation studio. Theo revealed to her. Sayuri was even more impressed. The Fuji Jump would become a giant if Theo's plan worked. And she did not doubt that it would work. It seems that the future is looking good. Sayuri smiled. It seems so. Theo smiled at her too. They talked for a while longer, but Theo had to leave after some time. He had to go to the restaurant to cook. He liked cooking, it was like a therapeutic time for him. He left the Fuji Jump building and walked towards his car. What he didn't know was that inside the coffee shop across the street, 4 men were seated while looking at him. Is that him? A rough-looking man said. He had tattooed arms full of muscles. Yes, you must threaten him roughly according to what I said before, but don't hurt him too much. We need him, a man that looked to be in his 50s said. The man was accompanied by 2 more men, that looked like they were his employees. That's right, there were Peter, George, and John. Peter was determined to save his company, even if he had to do something illegal. We will observe him for a day, and tomorrow night we do the job, the rough-looking man said. Great. Peter smiled evilly. He was looking forward to having this mangaka in his company. Theo did not know that someone was plotting his downfall. Author notice. Guys, with more power stones you give the novel, the more chapters one will release on the end of the week. So, don't stop giving power stones. Thank you for your support. Chapter 66 AE is Intuition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Friday, October 16. Theo arrived from his morning sparring session at his apartment. As he entered the apartment he was greeted by the scene of Maya jumping around the couch with her toy. The little kitten became much more open with Theo and Aurora after a few days of them giving her all the love that they could give. Hey, princess. Theo lifted Maya and hugged her. Today we are going to the vet to change your bandage, okay? Theo said with a caring voice. Theo and Aurora developed the voice that every pet owner acquired after getting a cub, the baby voice when talking to their pets. After a while, Theo released the poor kitten and went to take a shower. 30 minutes later, Theo and Aurora were having breakfast together. "Brother, can I go have a sleepover by Umaru's house?" Aurora asked with pleading eyes. Theo looked at his sister and thought about it. "This is great. I have a feeling that tonight something bad is going to happen." Theo thought. "Sure, but do not separate from your phone. I can monitor your location with it. No alcohol, no partying, no leaving Umaru's house. Be careful and responsible," Theo said with a serious voice. "Thank you, brother." Aurora was grateful. She did not have much difficulty in obeying Theo's conditions. She only wanted to have a sleepover with her friends anyway. "Text me when you arrive at Umaru's," Theo said as he gave her a hug when she was leaving for school. She would go directly to Umaru's house from her school. So, Theo was only going to see her tomorrow. "Yes, brother, I will send you a bunch of messages," Aurora said with a sweet voice. "Sure." Theo laughed. Theo looked at the street, as Aurora entered the car and went away. Theo entered the apartment and looked at Maya. "Let's go. You are coming with me today, little Maya." Theo smiled as he heard Maya giving a little meow. Theo put on some gray pants, a black shirt with silver details, and a wine-colored jacket. Theo looked like a stylized youngster with his luxury clothes. Theo exited his apartment with Maya. The morning went by with Theo changing Maya's bandage in the vet clinic. Afterward, he went to his office to study. Theo predicted that he would level up his architect skill to level 3 today, and tomorrow he would increase his engineering proficiencies to an intermediate level. That was an amazing speed. It needs to be said that level 3 of architect skill had the same knowledge as someone who just finished the architect bachelor's degree. The same happened with intermediate proficiency in the engineering departments. All of them were extremely complicated. And that is why the students only left the university with intermediate knowledge. If they wanted to learn more, they would have to learn by practicing or from more experienced engineers. But Theo learned these 5 subjects to an acceptable level in a little more of a week. His eidetic memory and enhanced intellect played a major role in this process. Theo was ecstatic about his prospects. At 4 p.m., Theo went towards the restaurant. When he arrived, he felt a strange feeling. The feeling of eyes malice hovering over him. He looked around the surroundings of the restaurant. The street where his restaurant was located was busy and crowded. He saw cars coming and going, pedestrians crossing the street and walking by the sidewalk, and people going into the shops located in the street. He could not pinpoint where the malice was coming from, but he was even more sure that something would happen tonight. He started having this feeling when he left the Fuji Jumps building yesterday and when he left the restaurant last night. And because of it, he drove fast and through strange routes until the feeling went away. But now he felt again. And the malice he felt was even more evident than yesterday. After he gained his martial arts grandmaster proficiencies, his 5 senses reached the limit that a human being could achieve. He also gained something even more precious, he acquired the fabled 6th sense. Just like when you feel when someone is looking at you, Theo could have that feeling even more evident. What Theo did not know was that 3 men were seating inside a coffee shop across the street while looking with malice towards him. All of them had a rough-looking face, muscled body, and tall height. "Is that him?" one of them asked. He seemed like the boss. Everyone called him by his nickname, Hammer. "Yes, boss," another replied. This was the one that negotiated with Peter. His nickname was Pipe. "We tried following him yesterday, but we lost him. But we could see that his car is worth at least 1 million, the last one continued. His nickname was Horse. "That is a great opportunity. We can earn more money if we get his car than from the job," Hammer said with an evil grin. Last night, His two gang members said that they had a job of threatening a young man, but they discovered that the young man had a luxurious car. They forgot about the agreement with Peter and started planning how to steal Theo's car. And they would anything to get that car. These men already killed people before, and they would kill again if necessary. The Spark restaurant had another great night full of clients that night. Shizuka, Gwen, and Kin already became full-fledged used with the rhythm of the kitchen and did not make any more glaring mistakes. The kitchen staff had a decrease in the workload because of it. All of them were satisfied that they would not be so tired after the service. "Are you going to stay back?" Aiya asked Theo after the service. She observed that he had a pensive face while seating in the lounge area. "Yeah, I have some things to do upstairs." Theo smiled and looked at Aiya and Shizuka. Aiya saw his smile, but she felt that today his smile was full of worry. His eyes seemed to be in deep worry about something. She hesitated about asking about it, but in the end, she decided to let it go. Aiya trusted Theo's judgment, but she could not help having the feeling that something was wrong when she left the restaurant with Shizuka. "I have a bad feeling," Aiya said to Shizuka when they were driving home. Shizuka did not say much for a while. After she started working at the restaurant, she felt the joy of working. At first, she wanted to work there to take care of Aiya. But now she understood why Aiya liked so much working there. She did not want anything bad to happen either. She trusted Aiya's instincts deeply. "I can monitor the surveillance cameras around the restaurant and through Theo's route to his house from the restaurant," Shizuka said with her usual serious voice. "Really?" Aiya was surprised that her sister would do that, but she accepted. "Let's go home faster, then," Aiya said as she stepped on the gas pedal of her luxurious car. Back at the restaurant. After all the employees left that night, Theo still was seated in the lounge area. His intuition said that something was going to happen. He did not know what to do. This never happened to him before. Suddenly, he stood up and had a determined face. He made a decision by then. First, he took his phone and made a phone call. After talking for a while he hangs up the phone. Afterwards, he walked out of the restaurant. The street that was busy during the day, looked much less crowded. Only some cars going to the nearby nightclub. He walked towards the parking lot where his car was. He felt again the eyes of malice looking at him. But now he could feel where they were. Theo smiled and kept walking. When he entered the parking lot, there was no one else there. It was the perfect place to attack someone. Theo was arriving next to his car when he heard the sound of a car driving in high speed towards his direction. Theo turned and saw the car was getting close. He was a little nervous, but he did not cower away. He would not admit defeat. The car stopped by his side with the sound of tires screeching. 3 men exited the car, with hooded heads and gloves. But Theo was ready for them. Author notice. Guys, I will release the extra chapters tomorrow. With more power stones given to the novel, more chapters will be released. Chapter 67 Fighting the Bandits. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Extra chapter. Theo knew that there was a possibility that these men were armed. Even if he was a grandmaster martial artist, he would lose in a direct confrontation. So, the first thing he did was to run and hide behind a column. He wanted to observe these men to see if any of them were armed. He ran so fast that the bandits could not follow his trail and lost sight of him. Hammer, the boss, who was about to leave the car, was surprised by Theo's fast reaction and getaway. He did not know where Theo was now. He needed Theo's car key and phone. These luxurious cars had an anti-theft system, and he needed the car's key and Theo's phone to deactivate the system. Hammer thought it would be an easy job, but he did not expect that Theo would get away as soon as they pulled next to him. "Get out and search the place. Get your guns ready," Hammer ordered as he exited the car. "Yes, boss," Pipe and Horse said as they took hold of their guns and exited the car. Theo observed three hooded men getting out of the car while holding guns. The situation was worse than Theo imagined, all of them had guns. But had to think fast about how to take them down. After a few seconds, Theo came up with a plan. He took a deep breath, and his face became calm again. But his eyes were different now, it was Predator's eyes. His eyes emitted a dangerous glint. He bent down and took some stone pebbles that were scattered around the ground. I need to separate them first. If they gang up on me with their guns, I won't be able to fight back. Theo thought as he spied on the three men that already started searching for him. They searched while keeping a close distance from each other. Theo took two pebbles and threw them in two different directions at the same time. Hammer and his two goons immediately heard a sound coming from two different directions. It seems that this guy wanted to throw us away with a bait, but while doing it he gave away his location. Hammer commented. Pipe, you go towards the sound that was further away. While Horse and I go to the sound that was close to us. There is no way he went so far, so it is more probable that the sound that was close it is him. Hammer ordered his goons. What they did not know was that Theo had a body with extraordinary stats that gave him the possibility of hiding closer to the sound that they deemed far away. Theo was relieved when he saw the men separating. And it seemed that he was lucky. Only one man was coming in his direction. The parking lot had multiple columns and Theo used them to walk stealthily. He walked while not making any sound. His breathing was so silent that people would think his heart stopped beating. Theo observed the single man going further from his friends. When the man was at a distance from his friends that not every sound would be heard by them, Theo got ready to attack. But first, he took a bunch of pebbles and walked stealthily to the column that was behind the single. In his next step of the plan, he needed to be fast and decisive. He took a deep silent breath, and he was ready. In 2 seconds, Theo made his move. In the first second, he threw the pebbles in the direction of the two who were farther away. When his arm finished the movement of throwing, his legs were already giving the impulse to jump in the man behind the column. He jumped on the back of the man while his feet kicked away the gun out of his hand. With the gun out of the picture, Theo locked the neck of the bandit with a move from the Jiu-Jitsu fighting style, the Mata.lo.o. In the move, Theo's left arm embraced the neck of the bandit from behind, and with his right arm, Theo locked the left arm into place. It was impossible to get out of the lock after it was applied. The bandit was surprised beyond words. 1 second, he was holding his gun while looking for a guy to rob, and in the other, his gun was kicked away, and he was gasping for air while his neck was being choked. He tried to get out of the lock by giving punches at Theo's head and arms, but Theo did not budge. It was then that Theo and the bandit heard a shout from afar. Pipe, is everything okay there? Hammer shouted. He heard multiple sounds from where he was searching, but he also heard a loud sound coming from Pipe's direction. When Theo kicked the gun away, the gun made a loud sound when it dropped on the ground. You going to reply to him the exact words that I say, or I will break your neck. Believe me, it is very easy for me to break your neck. Theo whispered in a low voice. Nod your head if you understand. Theo said again. Pipe nodded as much as it was possible while being choked. Hammer was starting to feel something was strange. Piper was taking too much time to reply. When he started to move in Pipe's direction, he heard a shout. Everything is okay, boss. I tripped and fell over a hole that has here. I think I hit my head. Pipe's shout was heard by Hammer and Horse. They smiled when they heard that. Pipe was the younger of their crew and he usually was clumsy. They assumed that everything was okay and continued searching in their area. Just a while ago they heard multiple sounds. They thought that the guy knew they were close to him and in a desperate attempt, he tried to divert their attention. They never imagined that they were acting just as Theo hoped. Pipe's neck was now being locked again. He tried to get away from Theo when he had his neck freed, but he could not budge Theo's arms. Good boy, but now you have to sleep, Theo whispered. Pipe was confused when suddenly he felt Theo's hand taking his head, throwing it at the ground. He felt his consciousness fading away as he thought that Theo was nothing like they imagined. He was not a lamb waiting to be eaten, he was the wolf. Theo looked at the unconscious bandit on the ground and heaved a sigh of relief. Step 1 is completed. Now it is the last step and the riskiest step of all. Theo was a little nervous about his next plan of action, but he did not cower. He was ready. Hammer and Horse were searching with their guns held high when they heard another shout. "Boss, I did not find anything." "Maybe he is trying to divert attention and trying to go towards the car." Hammer thought that Pipe's voice was a little weird, but he assumed it was because of the blow on his head. He thought that what Pipe said made sense. If the guy was smart enough, he would try to get away with the car. "Okay, go look at the car. Horse will go with you," Hammer shouted. Horse at his boss' orders and went towards the car. He looked around and saw Pipe walking from far away. Horse thought that Pipe's figure seemed a little odd, but he did not think too much about it and continued searching for their target. He felt a presence behind him, but he thought it was Pipe. Suddenly he felt a kick on his hand that was holding the gun, making the gun drop to the ground. He did not even have the time to react when he felt someone kicking his leg, making him fall to the ground. When he wanted to look at his aggressor, he felt a hand throwing his head with violence towards the ground. His consciousness faded away while thinking why Pipe did that to him. Theo took away the hood from his head and ran towards the bandit's car. He did not even stop to observe the bandit that he knocked out. He knew that would not fool the last bandit again, so he needed to take refuge for possible shots fired at him. When he arrived behind the car, he heard someone loudly cursing where he just knocked out a bandit. "You son of $%%," Hammer yelled. He was fuming. Now he understood everything. The guy divided them, then proceeded to knock Pipe out. Later he pretended to be Pipe and knocked Horse out too. "Do you think you can hide from me?" Hammer yelled. "I will burn you alive, you %% at %." Theo heard the man's threats with a calm face. He looked at the clock and said quietly, "They will arrive soon." Hammer was running towards the car and shot a bullet at the car. Theo jumped when he heard the shot. "Thank goodness I took refuge behind the car." Hammer emptied the clip of his gun shooting at the car. He calmed himself, but while trying to calm himself, sirens started to echo through the parking lot. They arrived. Theo smiled. Hammer was shocked as he looked at the cars arriving. It was the police. Chapter 68 Being Interrogated. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Extra chapter, Drop the Gun. "Drop the gun," 4 policemen shouted as they got out of 2 police cars. Hammer froze. How could it be? He and his goons only arrived here 5 minutes ago, and the police already were here. It did not make any sense. But what he did not know was that before leaving the restaurant, Theo called the police. He said that armed men were coming for him and asked for the police to arrive as soon as possible. Theo exaggerated a little, but he was thankful he did. Because indeed armed men were coming for him. The police were arriving by the restaurant when they heard the shots. They drove speedily towards the sound, and that was how they found the scene in front of them. "Drop the gun or we will shoot," one policeman said. Hammer woke up from his reverie, and immediately dropped the gun. He did not want to get shot. "Knees on the ground and held high," another policeman shouted. Hammer did as he was told, and shortly after he was handcuffed and thrown at the back of the police car. The policeman started to check the scene and found Theo behind the car. Theo was with his hands behind his head. "I am the victim," Theo shouted. "Mr. Theodore Gray?" a policeman asked, still holding his gun. "Yes, I have my identity here," Theo replied. They checked and verified that Theo was indeed the one that called them here. "Mr. Gray, are you okay?" a policeman asked after they verified his identity. "Yeah, but you must check that guy's accomplices." I was able to knock out 2 of them before the last made me hide behind the car because of his gun. Theo pointed at the location where Pipe and Horse were knocked out. The 4 policemen were surprised that there were still more bandits, and the victim was able to knock them out. They looked for the rest of the bandits and found them unconscious on the ground. It seemed that this Mr. Gray knew how to fight. They woke up, the unconscious bandits were handcuffed by the officers before throwing them in the police car. "Mr. Gray, you will have to come with us to provide clarification at the police station," the policeman said. While they were leaving, Theo saw cars from the forensics police arriving at the crime scene to collect evidence. Theo followed the police cars and arrived at the station. First, the 3 bandits would give their version of the story. Theo waited around 1 hour before he was called to testify about his version of the events. Theo entered a typical interrogation room. It was a small room with a table at the center and a mirrored glass by the back. 2 detectives were already there. "Good evening, Mr. Gray, how are you? My name is Detective Alto, and this is my partner Detective Mikoto," a middle-aged man said when Theo was seated by the table. "I could be better. It is a pleasure to meet you both." Theo smiled. "I imagine. How about you tell us what happened?" Detective Alto asked. "Well, everything started yesterday. I was leaving a company that I own when I felt someone observing me. The feeling continued when I left the restaurant where I work as a head chef last night. I drove in a strange path and lost my pursuers. It may sound unrealistic, but I do have this high perception. I am practice martial arts and I developed high senses," Theo said with a calm voice. "Do you have any proof of that?" Detective Mikoto said with a harsh tone of voice. Theo was a little taken aback by his tone of voice, but he still maintained his calmness. "Yes, I frequent a martial art dojo every day early in the morning. If you go to the Titan dojo, the sensei there will say that I spar with him daily." Theo replied with a calm tone of voice. Both detectives were a little frustrated. Theo did not lose his calmness even once. "Well, moving with the story, today when I was about to leave my restaurant, I felt that something was going to happen. I assumed the attackers were armed, and because of that I called the police. When I was about to get into my car, I heard a vehicle driving at a fast pace in my direction. I assumed that they were armed, and I ran away. I hid away from them. They got out of the car while holding guns. And because of the guns, I could not fight them openly. So, I separated them, and I knocked 2 of them. But in the process, the last bandit cornered me at the car. And it was then that the police cars arrived and took down the last bandit." Theo finished the explanation of the story with a still calm tone. The 2 detectives looked at each other and nodded. "Mr. Gray, do you have any guesses about why these men were after you?" Detective Alto asked. "Honestly, I don't have any idea about it. To steal my car. To kidnap me," Theo said with a thoughtful expression. "Talking about the car. How can you afford such an expensive car?" Detective Mikoto asked rudely again. Theo did not mind the rudeness and replied with a still calm tone. "I am perfectly capable of affording this car. My restaurant profit is in millions of dollars every month. But answering your question, I received this car as a gift from a friend." Theo answered. "Who is this friend?" Detective Mikoto asked again rudely. "I don't think my friend has anything to do with this crime, right?" Theo asked while looking at the eyes of the 2 detectives. "Am I being charged with something here? Because if it is this situation, I would like to ask for a lawyer. I don't like when someone accuses me of something I did not do." Theo said with his still calm tone, but now his voice exuded coldness. He did not like the attitude of these detectives. "No, no," Detective Alto laughed. "You are not being charged with anything. Can you wait a little? My partner and I will talk outside," he continued. "Sure," Theo replied. The detectives left and Theo kept his calm demeanor while seating in the interrogation room. "I don't like this guy," Detective Mikoto said with a snort when they were outside. "I hope you don't do anything illegal just because one of the bandits is your cousin," Detective Alto said with a serious tone. "I know." Detective Mikoto snorted. While they were talking outside the interrogation room, inside the office of the station's chief a phone rang. "Hello," the chief answered the phone. "Commissioner." "Yes, sir," the chief became deferent and answered with respect. The commissioner of police of Elfire City was calling him. This was the boss of all the police departments in the city. "What?" "Yes, sir." "Consider done, sir," the chief answered and hung up the phone. He quickly stood up and walked fast towards his secretary. "Joan, is there any Theodore Gray here today?" he asked the secretary. "Wait a sec, boss," the lady replied. After a minute, the secretary found it. "Boss, Theodore Bost suffered an attempted murder by 3 gang members. The bandits said that they were only after the car but one of them shot at the victim according to surveillance cameras. Detectives Alto and Mikoto are taking the testimony of the victim now. But it seems that they are making it hard to the victim. Do you want me to call them?" Joan, the secretary, reported. The police system had an advanced system, and she could see that the victim was being held in the interrogation room for a while. "Those little sh $%, the chief cursed and quickly went towards the interrogation room. Joan was surprised, her boss seemed to be nervous. And the cause of it, it was the victim in the interrogation room. Detective Alto and Mikoto were about to go back into the interrogation room and ask another series of difficult questions when they heard someone shouting their names. "Alto! Mikoto!" They turned their heads and saw the station's chief walking towards them with a furious face. Their faces became pale, they were not able to even answer and froze on the place. "Would you like to tell me why are you holding the victim of an attempted murder in the interrogation room?" Chapter 69 Police Chief and Aiya's Rage. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Extra chapter, Alto could not even articulate a sentence. "Do you even have a good explanation why?" the chief asked with a furious face. He seemed a little too calm," Mikoto replied in a low voice. "What? And you think that is a good reason?" the chief shouted. You better go in there and apologize for your rude behavior. Or I swear I will fire you both from the police. And you will only be able to work as bar's security," the chief yelled. The detectives became even paler, they started sweating cold sweat. They would never believe 30 minutes ago, that mistreating the young man in the interrogation room would make them come at the risk of losing their jobs. "Mr. Gray, we are so sorry if we mistreated you." Detective Alto apologized with a bowed head. "Me too, I am deeply sorry for rude remarks and words. I hope I did not have said that. And I hope you don't hold against me." Detective Mikoto was even more nervous, he was the one being rude towards Theo. And if the chief saw the video, he would be finished. "Sure, don't worry about it," Theo replied with a calm voice. He was surprised that such a turn of events happened, but he was glad that everything was clear. "Can I go home now?" Theo asked. "Yes, Mr. Gray." An old man with white hair entered the room and replied to Theo. "Mr. Gray, I am the station's chief and I promise you we will get to the bottom of this crime. We will not measure any efforts to solve this crime and put these bandits away for life," the chief said with a determined tone. "What is happening?" Theo thought in confusion, he did not know how the station's chief became involved with his case. "Sure, thank you for your efforts, chief." Theo still replied with a thankful face. Theo talked a little more with the chief and left the station afterward. As he left the station, he remembered that his car was still parked next to the restaurant. "Now how am I going home?" Theo asked out loud. "Need a ride?" a voice said behind him. Theo turned and saw 2 beautiful girls by the side of a sports car. So, that's why. Theo thought as he smiled at the gorgeous girls. Aiya and Shizuka looked at Theo with a relieved expression. Aiya could not hold back anymore and ran towards Theo. She jumped on his arms and hugged him. Theo had the air in his lungs pulled out by the impact of Aiya's jump on him. Thank goodness, are you okay? Aiya asked while still hugging him. Theo smiled and hugged her back. Don't worry, nothing bad happened. Theo said with a calm voice. Anyway, how did you find out? Theo asked after Aiya let it go of him. Well, I had a feeling that something bad would happen, so Shizu-chan said that she would check the surveillance cameras around the restaurant. When we arrived home, Shizu-chan hacked into the city surveillance system and we saw what happened. You were so awesome, Theo. It seemed like a movie scene. Aiya fired multiple words in a short period of time. Theo smiled. He was glad that Aiya became lively again. Thank you, girls, I appreciate your concern. Theo gave them a little bow with his head. No, you don't have to thank us. We are friends, aren't we? Aiya said while making his head straight again. Of course. Theo laughed. Thank you, Shizuka-san. I appreciate your efforts. Theo looked at the always serious Arya Shizuka. But if someone looked closely at her eyes, they would see appreciation and bewilderment. She did not imagine that Theo was so experienced. In the entire episode, he behaved like a war veteran. First, he fled the scene when the attackers were arriving to access the firepower of the enemy. Second, he divided them and took them one by one. Third, he called for backup. And his proficiency in martial arts was phenomenal. She presumed that he was at least a master. Don't worry, I was happy to help. Shizuka replied. Let's go. We will take you to your car. Aiya exclaimed. Thank you, Theo smiled as he entered the car. I didn't know you were so adept in martial arts. Aiya said with enthusiasm. Oh yeah, I love it. I practice daily in a dojo close to my apartment. I've been teaching Aurora too. Theo laughed. Really? Which styles are you proficient at? I did not recognize the moves you made. Shizuka asked. That style I created. In most of the styles I am proficient in, I created myself. But some that you might know are judo, Krav Maga, karate. Theo said with a thoughtful expression. Wow, and you are teaching Aurora? Aiya asked while driving her sports car. Hell yeah. It's always good for a woman to know self-defense martial arts. The world is full of dangers. Theo exclaimed. Yeah, I agree. Shizuka said. So, do you have any idea why they were after you? Aiya asked. Logic tells me that the possibility of them wanting to steal my car is higher. But I cannot help having the feeling that there is something else. Yesterday I was leaving the Fuji's building and I had the feeling that someone was watching me with malice. You guys know that my publishing company just launched countrywide, right? Theo asked. Oh right. I read your manga, and it is awesome. I am looking forward next volumes. Aiya giggled. Meanwhile, Shizuka nodded. She also read Theo's manga and she loved it. Thank you. Theo laughed. Well, yesterday, Sayuri and I received some guests from Sakura City. They wanted to poach the mangaka, me, of the Naruto manga. But they tried to bribe our employees. Sayuri took evidence of corporal espionage from them and forced them to leave. But as soon as I leave the company after they are humiliated by us, I start to have this feeling. It can't be a coincidence. Theo said. Wow, Sayuri is so badass. Aiya exclaimed. I thought so too. Theo laughed. I agree with you. There must be something. Shizuka said with a thoughtful expression. You don't have to worry about it. All the truth will come out. Aiya said, but her tone was different. Aiya was usually a lively and joyful person, but tonight she was furious. The love of her life was almost killed. When she saw what happened in the parking lot, she paused and could not breathe. When the bandit shot towards the car with Theo behind it, she almost fainted. She only calmed a little bit after seeing that Theo was okay. But that would not make her rage fade away. She wanted all the bandits to rot in prison. Aiya told Shizuka to put in motion all the key figures that Yamada and Lionheart family had in Elfire City. That was how the commissioner of police became involved. It seems that their family is more powerful than I imagined. Theo thought as he heard Aiya's affirmation tone of voice. I hope so. Theo smiled. After a 10 minutes drive, they arrived at the parking lot where Theo parked his car. Thank you so much for everything. You were my saviors. Theo said as he hugged the two girls. Let's plan to do something with the others. Theo said as he entered his car. Sure. Aiya said with a squeak. Bye. Theo said as he drove away. After he went away, Aiya collapsed on her seat. She was hyperventilating, she could not the heat of Theo hugging her by his own initiative for the first time. Oh my God. Almost I could not hold on. Aiya said exasperatedly. I saw that. Shizuka giggled. It was a rare occurrence for both. The always outgoing and lively Aiya was embarrassed and red as a tomato because her crush just hugged her. And the always serious and calm Shizuka was giggling in amusement at the sight of her sister's embarrassed face. Stop laughing, Shizu-chan. Aiya squeaked again. Oh God. Shizuka laughed even more. The two of them went home while bickering with each other. Chapter 70 Ghost. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Extra chapter. Theo arrived in his apartment that night exhausted. It was a long night full of ups and downs. The only thing he wanted was to take a shower and sleep until noon tomorrow. He was thankful that Aurora was having a sleepover at her friend's. He would go crazy if Aurora was placed in danger. Theo took a shower and slept. As soon he lay down on his bed the next day, Theo woke up to the sound of his phone ringing. Hello, Theo said with a grumpy sleepy voice. Now. Okay, I will be there shortly. Theo replied. It was Aurora. She wanted him to go pick up her, and he would never say no to his little princess. He got out of the bed and saw what time it was. 10:21 a.m. Wow, it has been a while since I woke so late, I must have been super tired. Theo entered the bathroom to take a shower before getting dressed. He gave food to Maya, who was sleeping on the couch. Such a sleepy princess. Theo exclaimed as he looked at the kitten. Theo drove towards Umara's house, but it was better to say mansion instead. Because the house was indeed a mansion. Hey, Cupcake, is everything okay? Theo asked with a doting smile when the girl entered his car. I am okay, big brother, I missed you. Aurora said as she hugged him. I missed you too. Theo said as he hugged her back. He contemplated if he should tell Aurora what happened. He did not want to lie to her. But he did not want her to worry about what happened. If she asks about it, I will tell her. But she doesn't ask, then I don't have to say anything. Theo made his decision. Did you have fun? Theo asked after they stopped hugging. Yes. It was so much fun. Aurora was happy that she came. It was a unique experience to have a sleepover. It was her first sleepover and she loved it. What did you girls do? Theo asked as he drove his car towards their apartment. Aurora then proceeded to tell Theo all the things she did with her friends in an excited voice. Theo smiled as he heard Aurora's excited voice. He thought she looked completely different from the girl she was 5 months ago. She became happier and more outgoing. He was overjoyed that he was making reality his promise to make her happy. She finished talking about her night when they arrived at their apartment. "And you, brother? How was your night?" Aurora asked, and they were entering the apartment. "Damn it!" she asked, Theo thought. "Well, we had another great service last night. June said she missed your helping hands, haha, and some guys tried to rob when I was leaving the restaurant last night. But everything is okay, the police arrived and arrested them," Theo said with a calm, dismissive voice. "What?" Aurora shouted. "Are you okay, brother?" she asked as she jumped on him to check if he was okay. Theo saw that coming and just accepted her checkup. "Just some bruises." Theo smiled helplessly. "Let me bandage them." "Why didn't you call me last night? What would I do without you?" Aurora said with a crying voice as tears rolled out of her eyes. Theo was her only family. She would collapse if she lost him too. "I'm okay, Cupcake, if something happened, I would have called you." But nothing happened. Theo hugged her to calm her restless heart. They talked about what happened while Aurora applied the medication on his bruises and bandaged them. Meanwhile, in another part of Elfire City, inside a police station. "Hammer, you have a phone call," a guard said as he walked to the front of a holding cell where 3 men could be seen. Hammer lifted his head and stood up. He regretted, but not what he did. He regretted how he did, and not researching his target deeper. He went over and over last night's happenings, and he concluded that they lost at the moment that he told them to separate. Now, he would have to go to jail for a few years. He thought as he walked over to the phone. "Hello," Hammer said to the phone after the officer left the room. "Hammer," a cold voice said over the phone. The voice only said his name, but his whole body shivered. This voice was something he dreaded, something that gangsters of Elfire City dreaded. It was wiser to offend the police than the owner of this voice. With the police, you would go to jail if you mess with them. But with this man, you would not be able to wake up for another day after offending him. Nobody knew the name of this man, but they called him Ghost. Because he oversaw the crime scene of Elfire City as a ghost. All gang leaders of the city had to go through him first before establishing a gang. And if someone establishes a gang without his permission, the gang would disappear the very next day. The same thing would happen if the gang disobeyed his orders. The Ghost himself did not have a gang, but he somehow was the boss. But his methods were famous, nobody ever saw how he disposed of his enemies. Hammer also had to seek Ghost's permission to start his gang. He still remembered that day, as if he was yesterday. The voice made him shiver in fear, just like today when he heard again. "Yes, boss," Hammer said with a trembling voice. "You will tell the whole truth to the police. If you do not, the prison will be your tombstone," Ghost said with a calm, chilling voice. Hammer turned pale, cold sweat rolled on his back. He knew that Ghost was saying the truth. Some guys thought they could escape from Ghost by going to jail. But on the first day in the prison, they were killed by inmates. Ghost had people everywhere. "Yes, boss, I will say everything," Hammer said quickly. He did not want Ghost to think he was hesitating. Hammer heard the call being ended and collapsed on the ground. His whole body was shivering. He never thought that a simple car theft would involve the horrible Ghost. That guy is not simple, he thought as remembered his last night target. I should have not involved myself, he now regretted even involving himself because of the $1 million car. No amount of money was worth it when the thing involved Ghost. He was guided back to the holding cell, but he was still pale. "Boss, are you okay?" Pipe asked when he saw his boss entering the holding cell with a pale face. "You tell me, you $%$, Hammer cursed the idiot that put him in this mess. "You two will tell the whole truth to the police. If I discover you left something unsaid, I will skin both of you alive," Hammer said with an icy voice. Pipe and Horse turned pale and confused, they did not know why their boss became so frightened to change his attitude. But they nodded quickly in agreement. "Officer, I would like to testify again." Hammer called the officer again. And like that the three of them testified again about what happened. They told that at first, they were contracted by a man from Sakura City to threaten Theo. They provided information about who it was and when the meeting happened. Detective Alto and Mikoto, who still oversaw the case after the scolding of the station's chief, were surprised that Theo was right. Indeed, someone was seeing him when he left Fuji's building. When they saw the surveillance cameras on that street, they were in shock. They were even more embarrassed about their yesterday's behavior. The three men told everything they knew and even provided evidence to corroborate their statements. The detectives were taken aback by the eagerness of the bandits to cooperate with the investigation. The case became much easier after the bandits' statements. The detectives only had to search for the new suspects that ordered the crime. Meanwhile, Peter already was in Sakura City. He did not want to be associated with what would happen. But he was a little nervous. It was already Saturday, and he did not get feedback from the guys he hired to threaten Theo. "Maybe they are partying with the money I gave them for the job." Peter found an excuse and went to sleep. He did not know that tomorrow his world would be turned upside down.